I thought if we can take tonight, people in this room can look at it and say, how can we awaken the Vivekananda in us? That means it is not about trying to just practice what is said. It is also about how do we tap into what is within us. In some respects, what Swamiji had said, like it is part of Kathopanishad, to talk about the Uttista, Jagruta, Praptivaran Nibodhata. Or when you look at, what he mentioned about one touch, one glance, the life is changed forever. So the same way, if you can listen tonight from the perspective of, for the next 1 year, if we can pay attention to what are some things which we can take away from Vivekananda that we can practice in our own lives, not just in somebody else's lives. So for that purpose, if we can get to next slide. What I did is, I put together a quick set of slides. Some of them you have heard a lot more in detail in the video. I'll just take a few thoughts to awaken and inspire us from there. So for example, if we say one thing, what does Swami Vivekananda stand for? You looked at the video, you have been preparing, some of you have attended lectures yesterday, some of you have been preparing for this event for a very long time. So what does Swami Vivekananda stand for you? Any comments from the audience? What is one thing that you believe he stands for?
Patriotic saint.
Patriotic saint. Okay, he is a patriotic saint. That is one. What else do you see personally?
Manifestation of divinity within.
Manifestation of divinity within. Okay. What else?
Compassion.
Compassion. Anything else?
Positive energy.
Positive energy.
Live for others.
Live for others. Yeah, serve others. Right?
Fearlessness.
Fearlessness. Yeah, he said fear is something which we need to banish from our lives. Anything else? What else does he stand for? What else do you hear as Vivekananda Swami represent for you? Yeah, please.
As he said, there's no sin. In fact, somebody asked him,
Right.
what is the sin? He said, don't tell me that. I am what I am because of my sins.
Yes.
So,
He doesn't believe in sins.
Yes. So whatever you look back, whatever you've done wrong in life,
Right.
you're today, because of your wrong actions,
Yeah.
you've made some corrections.
That's right. Yeah, he said we are Amrutasya Putraha. He said we are like from the children of immortality, we are not sinners. Right? Anything else? Yeah.
Great ambassador of Hinduism to the West.
Great ambassador of Hinduism to the West. One of the first and the most important person who brought Hinduism and India to the attention of the West. Anything else? Last comments. What do you take away from studying, listening and thinking about Swami Vivekananda? What is one thing that he stands for?
He focused on poverty.
He focused on poverty, alleviation of poverty. That is something that became extremely important for him. He said just sitting under the trees or becoming a monk, being in a cave, doesn't serve what it is that we have to serve. We have to actually alleviate the poverty. We have to make the life much better for the women and for the poor. That is something that became important part of Ramakrishna mission. So those are some of the things which he stands for. Why I asked is, each of us are touched by one thing. maybe there is a reason why that touched you. Why you remember about Swami Vivekananda? Because that is something that connects with what you think is important in your own life. So I recommend, like whatever words you said today, or when various words have been spoken about Swami Vivekananda, if there is one thing that resonates within you, I recommend you take that as your focus point for the next 1 year. This 150 years celebration through the entire year, if you can focus on that one thought and see how you can make it your own, grow it, and try to make your own unique contribution, I think that would be the greatest contribution we can make to his legacy, and we can take it forward above and beyond where Swamiji left it for us. Next slide, please. So, how did he get to, like various thoughts which we talked about, how did he get to them? So, what was the role of Dr. William Hastie? In the movie we say, Dr. William Hastie was the person who was in the college who was reading about a poem. He was describing a particular poem of Wordsworth. That is where he talked about trance. And he talked about coming face to face with God. In that context, he encouraged all the students to go to Swami Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and meet him in person, because he said, if you meet him, the trance will not be something intellectual for you, but that is something that you can experience. So in some respects, there was a way in which William Hastie actually helped him. He was studying Western philosophy. In addition to Indian philosophy, he was an expert in looking at various other religions. Throughout his life, he studied Christianity, he studied Islam, he studied various other religions, in addition to studying his own. So there was a certain sense of knowing the other, in addition to knowing oneself. That is something that actually came face to face for him when he met Swami Ramakrishna. Similarly, several other people have contributed significantly to Swami Vivekananda. Why is that important? It is about recognizing whoever you are. Maybe we are Amrutasya Putraha, we are probably the divinity, but not necessarily in touch with it most of the time. There are times when we go up and down. If we can figure out a way to recognize the same divinity that is within us is also in other people, people whom we love, people whom we hate, people whom we connect with, people whom we don't connect with, and figure out a way to connect to that divinity in us, in others, and in between us, maybe there is a way in which that awakening not just becomes something like a one-time event, but it becomes a continuous living consciousness. So, you can even give it to me, that makes it much easier. Thanks. The key part of Swami Vivekananda is not just what he said, but it is his insatiable curiosity and his probing inquiry. For example, he had relationship with Swami Ramakrishna Paramahamsa only for 5 years, from 1881 to 1886, by the time Swami passed away. He fought with him continually. He actually questioned, challenged. He did not agree to whatever Swami Ramakrishna said just verbatim. That is what even in the movie we talk about. Don't just have blind faith. Blind faith is as good as not having any faith at all. You need to inquire, you need to take a topic, you need to make it your own, you need to reflect, you need to do what you call mananam, dhyanam and nididhyasana. Only when you do that, it becomes yours. So in some respect, same way for the 150th year anniversary, what is one thing that you are curious about, but you didn't have time to discover it for yourself? Please spend time to discover that, whether it is through Swami Vivekananda's life or it is through your own. Figure out what is it that you can learn, what is it that you are curious about but did not invest time in discovering, and use the other people to help you to get there. Another interesting thing which you saw in the video was when he swam to the Vivekananda rock, the far end of the southernmost tip of Kanyakumari, where there he came up with a resolve. That is where he had some kind of a clarity. One of the key part which I think, which he got at that time, we as a nation have lost our individuality, and this is the cause of all our mischief in India. We have to raise the masses. I believe with all the rape crisis that we have heard about, with all the scenarios that we face, whether it is in India or the apathy sometimes anywhere else, maybe it is time for us to again awaken the inner Vivekanandas in each one of us, because we seem to be going through the cyclical transition that we go through, that we need to awaken the masses from where we are operating from apathy or certain carelessness or certain scenarios that we are unhappy with. Maybe each of us have to take responsibility to see how do we resolve, how do we take this today, how do we take this determination at least to last for 1 year, the dhruti as they call in Bhagavad Gita. It's an extremely important word. Dhruti in Sanskritam essentially means, if I translate it loosely, it is like courage under fire. How can you have a dhruti to do something better in India, for each of us, wherever we are, in the United States, to the other people who are around us? Again, the question it comes down to is, what awakened Swamiji? He says, a sense that all living beings were an embodiment of divine self, held service to God could be rendered by service to mankind. As some of you are saying, the whole idea, Madhava Seva is equivalent to Manava Seva. Madhava Seva without Manava Seva is actually something which is very selfish act, he believed. He believed that only through serving others that you can serve truly to the God, and that is something. So whom do you need to serve? Where is it that you have been resistant to serve? Maybe something that you may want to think about. Again, it's nice to preach, it is nice to tell others, but he practiced, what we call like a Trikarana Suddhi, we call Kaya, Vacha, Manasa. Or even in some of the things we say, Kayena, Vacha, Manasa, Indriyaiva, Buddhyatmana va, Prakrite, Swabhavat, Karomi Yadyat, Sakalam Parasmai, Narayana iti samarpayami. Aham Karomi, I will do whatever I can to the best capability I have. Whatever I cannot do, that I will say, God, this is your turn, I cannot do it anymore. Similarly, Kaya, Vacha, Manasa, through your actions, through your words, and through your thoughts, how do you live? There is something like, we have only certain amount of time, 1440 minutes a day. Every minute gone, it's already gone. Similarly, we have a resolve that we need to take and start practicing what we have learned from Swami Vivekananda to see how can we take it one step further. So I thought in that context, I'll quickly say some of the lessons from there, and then I'll leave with a few quotes which he had left. The most important one which he brought, as some of you brought about, is a new understanding of religion. He felt the religion is a universal experience of transcendental reality that is common to all humanity. It doesn't matter whether you come from Christianity, whether you come from Hinduism, whether you come from anywhere else, the experience is the same. It is not the rituals, it is not the tenets that sometimes are associated with the dogma, that the transcendental reality and connecting with that is actually the definition of religion, and that's why he called it, just like you have a science of the outside world, which we call science and technology, science of the inner world is what he calls religion, the science of consciousness. And similarly, he says ultimately what makes a person having a religious mind is going for the supreme freedom, and then supreme knowledge and supreme happiness. Satyam Gnanam Anantam Brahma, that's what it says in Taittiriya Upanishad, in Brahmananda Vali. Essentially, to the extent you can go for what is truth in your consciousness as well as the shared consciousness, and the Gnanam, of course, that was translated as knowledge, I would translate it as a perspective. The gnanam means the something that gives you the vijnanam or pragna, the ability to have a certain perspective of your own. And finally, leading to Anando Brahma, the idea of happiness, not just your happiness, but also the happiness of other people. Whatever provides these three, that is the religion according to Swami Vivekananda. How can we practice that as we go forward? The next one, again, I think as Jyotiji mentioned, like the whole idea of Amrutasya Putraha, we are the children of, again, all over. That means respect means don't take people for granted, do not judge people, do not have a prejudice, look at them, each time you look at them freshly and newly and openly as if they are divine. That is probably something which I think we can bring in a lot more. What would it mean to essentially awaken? Again, it is about how do you control the nature both internally and externally. That means wherever I go, wherever I work, wherever I live, how do I create a certain amount of tranquility and peace? That means when I get angry, can I look at it and say, what is it that other person is triggering in me? What is the inner nature in me that is getting so stimulated so quickly? What if I get angry because whatever I am unable to control, if I see it in other people, maybe it is actually creating some kind of a mirror reflection. When we begin to look at many of our negative emotions as what you might call a certain reflection, our own shadow side that has not been embraced by us, then it becomes a lot easier to be compassionate towards other people and also become compassionate towards ourselves. And how we do that and is to aim for being free. Free ourselves and free with everybody around us to have the ability to express themselves freely without threatening or without any kind of fear of persecution, without something else. So a certain amount of transparency, which we value so much in the United States, is also connected deeply with the concept of creating freedom around us to be able to express. Similarly, how do you do that through the body? How do you do that through your discipline? How do you practice self-control? Like what we call in Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dhyana, Dharana, Dhamadi. If you look at the 8 limbs of yoga, the first 5 are all about Bhakya. Once you master the external world, then you can go to Dhyana, Dharana and Samadhi. In what you call Vivekananda, focusing so much on yoga, both the Raja Yoga as well as the Hatha Yoga, he said we need to control the external environment as well as the internal environment. The other most important part of it is he brought a new principle of morality. Again, as you said, the fear is death. Fear is the ultimate sin, and fear is the hell and the unrighteousness, and fear is wrong life. He says, face the terrible, face it boldly. You cannot escape fear by going away. You have to embrace it. Only through fear that you, on the other side, you discover the courage. And interestingly, the word courage